Hello, hello. Welcome to the live Q&A for Unreal Collective. Happy that you're here joining me. Happy to be here. Happy to give some more background on what Unreal Collective is, how it works, what you can expect, and answer any questions that you have. So once again, thanks for being here. This should run probably about 45 minutes, I'm guessing, maybe even a little bit less, depending on how many questions you have. Some of you submitted questions ahead of time in the email and just kind of one-off to me. So I already have those, and I'll attack those towards the end of the presentation here. But if you have any other questions in the meantime, feel free to enter them into the chat, enter them into the Ask a Question box. Happy to answer them at any point. If you guys have any trouble hearing me, or want me to go back or slow down, enter that in the chat as well. I want to make sure that you're hearing me well. Otherwise, we'll get started here in a minute or so. So once again, thanks for being here. Excited to talk to you more about Unreal Collective, give you some more of the expectations, the way it's going to work, what you can expect, and again, answer any questions that you have. So all along the way, stop me if I'm going too quickly. Share some questions if you have them. Happy to answer all of them as much as time allows, or as long as you want to hang out here with me, and we will get started. So my name is Jay. A little bit about the agenda of this conversation or monologue. We're going to go through a few things. I'm going to start telling you a little bit about my background personally, why Unreal Collective exists, what the mission of the company is. A little bit of a history of Unreal and what it looks like now, what it used to look like, how it works. Then I get into a full how does Unreal work, what you can expect. Expectations of you is after that, what I expect in members, people who join Unreal Collective, and how you can be a good group member to the individuals that you're working with. What makes a good project, what type of person should apply, and what type of project should you have coming into Unreal. The next steps for after this call, let's say you're interested and you want to take the next step. What does that look like? How do you do that? I'll talk about that, followed by some of the Q&A. So all along this way, like I said, feel free to enter questions into the chat box, into the question box. I'll get to them at the end. I'll make sure that if I didn't cover it in the presentation itself, I will answer it directly. I'd also be happy to talk to you personally one-on-one if you'd like. All you need to do is email me at j@unrealcollective.com, and I'd be more than happy to set up a one-on-one time with you if this does not answer all of your questions, or if you want to vet your idea to see how good of a fit it would be for Unreal. Anything's in play. First and foremost, I want to make sure that people joining Unreal are aligned as far as expectations, so that we get off on a good foot. I'm not interested in baiting somebody into something that's not a fit. I want to make sure that this is a fit for you and that you have the same expectations that I do, so that our 12 weeks together will be amazing. Cool. So a little bit of a background on me. I've been community building for a long time. It goes back all the way to even when I was in high school, leading a football team as a captain, as well as our track team. And then going into college, I got introduced to the entrepreneurship organization, which I led in college, while also getting involved with Startup Weekend. Startup Weekend, which I think is super relevant to the work that I do here with Unreal. Startup Weekend is a weekend-long event. It brings together engineers, designers, and everything in between. Usually here locally in Columbus, we bring in about 100 to 125 individuals with very diverse backgrounds. We bring them into a room on Friday night. We allow them to pitch their ideas for 60 seconds. About the top 12 or 15 ideas actually get teams organically formed around them. Again, people validate the idea, build an MVP, create the user experience for that MVP, and then pitch that to a panel of judges on Sunday evening. So we've been doing that here locally since 2009. I've been personally organizing since 2012. And through that, I really learned a lot about what it takes to get a project started, start a business, validate an idea, build a team. I learned a ton through that experience, as well as just building community. And I bring all of that to the table here with Unreal Collective. When I was in college, I interned for several startups, some of them venture-backed here in Columbus as well. So I picked up a lot, including some of the best mentors that I have in my network through that experience. And that gave me the knowledge that I needed to start my own company in 2014 with a partner in Cincinnati. It was a digital ticket exchange, a little bit like StubHub. It was called Tixers. Looked a lot like StubHub as a secondary ticket exchange that you could buy game tickets, event tickets, concert tickets, festival tickets. If you were a ticket holder, we would make you an offer to buy those tickets up front in site credit. So it was a little bit different from StubHub in that you didn't look at the market, you didn't price your ticket, you didn't wait for a third-party buyer. We, the marketplace, bought it up front from you. So we did that in 2014. We went through an accelerator in Covington, Kentucky called UpTech. We raised a seed round of funding, a little less than $400,000, operated for a little over a year before a company in Florida who developed mobile apps for teams. They developed apps for the Los Angeles Lakers, the New York Jets, the Washington Redskins, the Villanova Wildcats. They were interested in our technology, and they acquired Tixers for our technology in 2015. So I worked for that company for about a year to get our contractual obligations out of the way. So Alex and I received our final payout. And then following that experience, I said, entrepreneurship is really hard. I have a lot that I want to learn about different types of businesses. I'm going to go learn from another entrepreneur. And I took a position in product, a product manager at a local venture-backed startup called Crosschecks, which is in healthcare IT. So did that starting in June of 2016 up until April of this year, just about May of this year. And since May, I've been working on Unreal Collective full-time. So Unreal Collective exists to help entrepreneurial people, creative people, take the next step with their ideas, with their projects, with their businesses. With my experience at Tixers, I was working remotely here in Columbus. My partner's in Cincinnati. I was kind of working in isolation a lot of the time, and I know how difficult it can be to work on something sort of in isolation, even if you have some people around you. Doing something for the first time where there is no set roadmap, there is no set blueprint. If there was, it wouldn't be an opportunity you're pursuing. It's very difficult. And it's difficult from just a logistical level. It's also difficult from a mental level of getting up every day, really feeling the fire and the motivation to continue to do something that's been really hard. Maybe it's beating you down and you don't have people to go talk to. You don't have anyone holding you accountable. It can be really hard to keep momentum going forward when you hit a rough patch. And if you have any experience in an entrepreneurial or creative venture, there are rough patches. There are natural ups and downs of emotions and experiences, and you're going to run into that. So Unreal exists so I can create community to help people get through those periods from a morale standpoint, but also from a technical and experience standpoint. I basically have two secret motivations with Unreal that I sometimes share. I don't often share, but I'll just go ahead and share this up front. Based on my experience, I've learned that we have a much greater capacity and ability and ceiling than we think that we do. And so based on my background in product management, I've gotten really good at managing my time. I've gotten really good at pushing my capacity, creating deadlines that I hold myself to, that I have realized so much more potential because of that. So Unreal creates a structure where you are investing in 12 weeks of focus. I put the program around you to help empower you to discover that you can create and execute on much more audacious deadlines than you thought possible. You will get so much more done in 12 weeks in this program that you would on your own. That's motivation number one. Motivation number two is any time that I have gotten blocked up or stuck, or I've needed some extra knowledge or skills, if there's a knowledge and skills gap that I find in myself, what I've found is the most effective thing to do is go find someone else who knows that answer. Find someone else who's done it before or can point you in the next direction. We can spend so much time on our own trying to figure something out, and we're smart, and I trust that you can figure it out. The question is that the best use of your time, figuring out a solution yourself, when you can leverage the brains and experience of other people who have done it or know someone that has done it? So that's motivation number 2, is teaching you that to clear a knowledge and skills gap, all you have to do is leverage the minds of somebody else. And so that is inherent in the Unreal Collective program as well, giving you those minds to leverage. So one more personal story, and I'll keep moving forward. In 2014 and 2015, I lived in a house with 6 other creative entrepreneurial individuals. And it sounds crazy to do that as an adult, but being in that environment where everybody had their own creative pursuits, their own passions, their own goals and objectives that they were sprinting at 100 miles per hour was so empowering and inspiring that it really raised the level of my work. And they were playing in different areas than I was. So I got to see and learn from them by proxy. I got to leverage their perspective and their experience to help me build the work that I was doing with Tixers, and I could contribute in the same way. And what may be familiar to you, and is familiar to a lot of people, is the concept of a mastermind group. Mastermind groups are generally groups, small groups of people, 5 to 8 people, who will meet on some regular interval, and they're generally focused on a topic area. You might have 8 lawyers, you might have 8 digital marketers who will meet a few times a month and help each other tactically get through problems. And what I found was I was basically living in a mastermind group. I had basically created a mastermind group that I was living in day to day, and that had such a profound impact on me. But it wasn't that we were all doing the same thing. It was actually the diversity of everyone's backgrounds and experience and goals that really led to rapid growth in myself and my work. So Unreal Collective is really a collection of all of these ideas. And what I do is I play the role of lightning rod for very ambitious, awesome people who are doing work that I believe in. And based upon their projects, their goals, but also their experience, I match you guys up in groups of 5. I get a pool of applicants. I invite people based on their projects, their goals, and their backgrounds, and I put them in these optimal groups of 5 where I can see from having talked to everybody where you're going to have common learnings, where you're going to have this through line that you're going to be able to both contribute to other people in your group, but also really learn from other people in the group and the work that they're doing. Before we get started, I meet with everybody individually who's applied and has been accepted. Everybody who's joined Unreal, I meet with one-on-one. We co-create a roadmap for your 12-week goals. 12 weeks is 3 months. 12 weeks doesn't sound like a long time. 3 months is a long time. It's a serious commitment, and it's a serious opportunity. We start off the 12 weeks by projecting forward and saying, okay, where do I want to be 12 weeks from now? For this group, that'll be at the end of April. So where do I want to be at the end of April? So I know that I have succeeded and I've made rapid progress. Then you and I will line out some clear milestones in getting there. And we'll also line out some clear obstacles that you may face that may get in your way on the way there. The more that we can think forward and identify obstacles ahead of time, the better chance we have to get ahead of them and overcome them quickly. Then we look at things in 4, 8, and 12-week check-ins. If this is our ultimate goal, and we know what milestones are going to naturally need to happen to get there, how do we stack those into third increments to know as we're going if we're on track or not? So we'll say, okay, this handful of milestones we want to get done by week 4. Then we need to have this handful of things done by week 8, and these few things by the end of week 12. Then as we're going week to week, and we're declaring action items, we're doing that based on our milestones. And if we get to week 4 and we're actually ahead, great, we can recalibrate and we can actually maybe get more audacious. If we get to week 4 and we're a little bit behind, okay, we know that for the next 4 weeks, we're gonna have to really pick up the pace. Every week then, we meet as a group of 5. You will immediately, before we get started with the calls, you will receive information on the 5 people that you're joining. You will have a private Slack group with me and that group of 4 other individuals. We meet every week on a video call, the same day, same time for 12 weeks to help each other get from point A, where you are now, to point B, this point 12 weeks in the future. Almost every call is structured in a hot seat format. And so a hot seat format is where we focus the vast majority of the call on one individual and really go deep in helping them get ahead or get past an obstacle or get to the next sort of milestone. And the way that looks is I'll send you a questionnaire beforehand and I'll have some probing questions. Here's a reminder of what my project looks like. Here's what I've been spending my time doing lately. Here is where I'm stuck, and here is where I need to go. Can you give me feedback on this? Can you connect me to these people? So for 40 minutes, we are really drilling down, giving a lot of outside perspective, giving a lot of ideas, and giving our focused attention on one project. That's what a hot seat is. Every call, regardless if it's a hot seat format or a different format, starts for the first 10 minutes getting a general update from everybody, asking them where they've been progressing, where they're stuck, how we can help, but also checking against last week's action items that were declared. So at the end of every call, the last 10 minutes, you are self-declaring, okay, before next week, I know I need to get done these 5 priorities. And as you name those and declare those, I write those into a Google spreadsheet that I share my screen and I show you, so we have full accountability for everybody in the group. You can see, okay, this is what I've declared that I'm going to get done next week. You can check against that all week before the next call. And as I just said, at the beginning of the call, it's pulling up the same spreadsheet, checking against that, and giving an update on this is how I did. So as I sort of alluded to, we have a Slack group that we will use to communicate outside of the calls. You can communicate synchronously or asynchronously, meaning that your group will have a private channel so that you'll still have that trust, that rapport, that kind of closed area to discuss anything that you need at any time with your private group. We also have public channels around different interest categories. There's photography, there's reading, there's podcasts, articles, videos, show and tell. If you want to show something off, or if you want to get feedback from somebody, or if you need connected to somebody, you can use the public channels to connect not only with the other groups that are going through the program right now, but everybody else who has gone through the program in its history. And I'll touch on its history here in a minute. We've had 20 people go through the program at this point, 4 groups of 5. It's been really, really good. The results are awesome, and I'll touch on a couple of those examples here momentarily. But one thing I mentioned was that most weeks are the hot seat format. Since there are 5 people in your group and there are 12 weeks, everybody gets 2 weeks dedicated to their project on the hot seat. There are 2 other weeks then that are a little bit different, and those will be at the front end of the 12 weeks, and that is intended to get comfortable with everybody, build some trust, build some rapport, and at the end of the 12 weeks, we'll have a bonus call, which is a showcase for the entire community. So you can show off the progress that you've made. You can make more asks for help, for feedback, and you'll get that attention from the entire community then, not just your private group. So outside of that, we'll have some optional events. We'll have some work sessions, usually on the weekends. For people who are local to Columbus, we hold them locally. Once we get a little bit more of a footprint in other cities, I would love to travel and do that there. But we'll do some virtual and remote hangouts here in Columbus. We'll also just have some check-ins. If people want to hang out for an hour and give general updates, I will put a time on people's calendars, and if you're interested in doing that, you can join. So that's a little bit about how it works. If you weren't already familiar, remember, this is a 12-week workshop that is intended to help you reach your next milestone. That can be a lot of different things. Maybe for you, that is building the MVP of your project. Maybe that is finding your first customer. Maybe it's building your first website. Maybe it's launching the first 3 episodes of your podcast. Maybe it's writing the outline of your book. Maybe it's getting to the next stage of business development. Maybe it's doubling your revenue or tripling your revenue. whatever your next milestone is, that is what's going to be the key that drives our roadmap that we create together and the activities that we pursue every week. So a little bit of a history. I jumped over this. I meant to do this earlier. The first group that went through this program, it was a group of 5. It was a beta group. It was me dog fooding my own process. I found people who I thought would be a great fit. I knew they were working on their own projects. And I said, will you guys test out this format with me? I'm going to facilitate these calls for you every week. I'm going to help you get to your next step. I just need you to show up every week and take this seriously. And they did. That started in May of 2017. They did their 12 weeks, which wrapped up in August. We had some really great wins. We had a freelance photographer. We had somebody building a small business. We had an author writing a book. We had a comedy writer who was putting together a script, a spec script for TV. And we had a musician who was working on an album. So that was a lot of fun. I made some tweaks to the format to further improve it based on their feedback. And the next 3 groups then started in August. They were varied in their backgrounds. We had startup founders. We had people who ran creative agencies and had been in business for years. We had freelancers. We had people building Etsy shops. We had people starting podcasts. We had somebody who was, we had a couple people doing apparel brands. So it's a pretty wide range. The format can fit a lot of projects, a lot of goals. What is important is that you have a goal or you have an outcome in mind, because based on that is how I match you with people. I generally match groups based on where they are in their journey. And again, I know you personally because I've read your application. I've talked with you one-on-one. I understand where you're going, what type of people you're going to need to get there. And I group you based on that. I make group selections based upon where you guys are headed and how I can help stack the deck in your favor to get you there. So don't be afraid of your project being something different than a lot of people. Like I said, the goal here is actually diversity of thought and experience, so long as I still see the through line of the education that will happen and the shared learning that will happen to help you get there. Some highlights from the last group that I will share, members who I think just crushed it. We had a woman named Elise. She is a brand strategist in Cincinnati, Ohio. She had an idea for an interior decorating business, and she came in with just that idea. She validated the idea. She created a brand for it. She built a website, and she brought on her first 2 customers before the 12 weeks ended. It's crazy. It's awesome. We had another guy named Andy. He has a startup called WeVote that makes the political process much more accessible for everyday people. Through the program, he built a team. He found a lead engineer. He found a lead product manager. He found someone who's going to be president of the company. He got a ton of feedback and validation from municipalities in Columbus, Ohio. He has potential clients, and he got closer to investment at an institutional level. So that was incredible growth to see too in 12 weeks. Clayton had an apparel concept called Exploring with Words. When he came into Unreal, he had 8 listings on Etsy, hadn't really put much time into it for many, many months. He was making about $200 a month. After Unreal Collective, he was up to over 200 listings and went from $200 a month in revenue to, in the last 30 days, he was telling me it's almost, I think he just broke $4 grand. So at the end of the 12 weeks, he was pushing 2. And now, based on that trajectory, he's broken 4 in a 30-day period. So that's pretty great. But those are just 3 examples. We had other freelancers. We have individuals who run creative agencies. We have people in finance, people in design, people in accounting, photography, all over the board. So whatever you're working on, there are going to be people in the community who can be helpful to you and that you can be helpful to as well. And I think you'll be really, really surprised and thankful for the people who are in this group. So expectations of members, expectations that I have if somebody is going to join Unreal Collective. And these are things that I try to tease out in the application to really get a feel for and understand, to make sure and screen for good members. Because, well, I'll get to this in a second. First and foremost, you need to make every call a priority. It's going to be the same day, same time for 12 weeks. So it's easy to block out on your calendar. Since it is video chat, it's very easy to maintain that priority in your schedule because you can drop in right at the beginning of the hour, and you can drop off at the end of the hour if you really need to move quickly. So that is the first and foremost expectation that is absolutely required of everybody joining. You need to come in having full expectation to join every call or make it a priority. Of course, it's not a prison sentence. Life happens. I understand life happens. If there's something that absolutely is non-negotiable, you cannot make the call. I ask for as much notice as possible because when I get notice, I can go to other members of other groups, and based on their backgrounds, I can pull them in to fill space on the call. A huge part of the value of Unreal Collective is being able to leverage the minds in your group, right? 2 minds are greater than 1, and 5 minds are greater than 2. So every time you lose someone on that call, it becomes inherently less valuable. You don't want that if you're on the hot seat, and you shouldn't contribute to that problem if you're not on the hot seat. So really can't stress enough, people who join need to have the expectation that they're going to be on every one of these 60-minute calls for 12 weeks. The other expectation, which should go unstated but is worth stating, is that you're excited to do the work. Ultimately, we surround you with a ton of resources and a ton of feedback and a ton of background and experience and perspective on your problems, but we don't do the work for you. You need to go implement the ideas. You need to go take the feedback and iterate based upon it. You need to put in the time every week to action your action items. So we can't do that for you. So if you think this is going to be a magic bean and just talking to people is going to solve the problem for you, it gets you pretty close to the way there. But you have to be action oriented and you have to be willing to do the work. And you have to be excited to do the work. You should be committed to the process. You should look at this as an investment in 3 months of your focus that you're looking forward to doing. I don't doubt that anybody has motivation. What I doubt is that somebody has clarity around what to do, or that they have the accountability and discipline sometimes to do things on the schedule they need to do. I expect that you prepare for your hot seats. You get 2 of them dedicated to your project. It is fully your time. That 40 minutes can be used however you want. I just ask that you come into your hot seats having a plan for how you're going to use it. If you want to get feedback on the design of something, or you want to get some ideas for how to craft a survey, whatever it is, prepare ahead of time. I will send you a questionnaire ahead of time because I would like to give members of the group some opportunity to put some forethought into it so that we can make that 40 minutes as fruitful as possible for you to really help you move forward. So prepare for your hot seat. When you get people who give you advance notice of what they're going to be talking about, prepare for their hot seat if you can. This is really a two-way street. Everything about this is very communal. So I ask for a little bit of preparation. Along the same lines, every week I'll be asking for your action items. So not only do you need to be doing your action items and excited about doing that, but you need to put some thought into, okay, what's priority for next week? So that at the end of the call, when I say, hey, what are your action items for next week? You're not trying to come up with it on the fly, or you're not doing something kind of arbitrary. You've looked against your goals, you've looked against your milestones, you understand what's going to help get you to the next level. And at any point, I am very happy to help you think about that. You can reach out to me on Slack at any time, and I'm more than happy to work with you personally to figure out, okay, here's what's going to make sense to get us this next milestone, in this next 4 weeks. And then finally, I ask that you are a contributor to Slack. That is our, like I said, asynchronous communication channel. I almost entirely communicate with the groups via Slack as opposed to email. And I do that because I want to cultivate conversation and collision there. I have some guides for how to sort of customize the notification features within Slack so that you're only getting the communication in the style that you want that'll help you work effectively. Part of the reason I use Slack as opposed to a Facebook group is because I want this to be something that's a value add and is not pulling you into social media. Excuse me. I'm looking for focus. I think Slack lends itself much better to that than Facebook does. But for that to be true, you need to have Slack. I recommend downloading it to your phone, having it on your desktop, so that when people ask questions, if they tag you or if they're just looking for general feedback from anybody, you are able to go in and contribute. So who should apply and join Unreal Collective? What does a good member of Unreal Collective look like? What does a good project look like? There are 4 traits that I really look at strongly when it comes to new members. I want somebody to be driven, someone that has an intrinsic hunger to do the work, because like I said, no one's going to do the work for you. You have to have some level of drive. We'll give you the system, we'll give you the mechanism, we'll give you the encouragement, the support, and the perspective, and all the outside feedback that you want. But ultimately, you need to be driven enough to do some of the work. I also look for people who are ambitious, people who are not satisfied with comfortable, people who aren't looking small, people who are really trying to stretch themselves. I look for people with some level of ambition because that's going to help contribute to your drive. And I look for people who are open and generous. Those are the last 2 things. I kind of put them hand in hand. Open meaning open-minded, open to experience, open to perspective, open to opinions. You're both willing to share your own opinion, but also hear others and not make it combative. There's no time or space in Unreal for jerks. You are welcome to have strong opinions, but those strong opinions should not encroach or, be assaulting somebody else. You need to have some tact and empathy, and that comes from being open-minded to hear other people's perspectives and, hear their feedback, be open to their feedback. They're here to give you their perspective, their background, and the same goes for you. You're there to help them. And generous ties very closely to that. Generous, I mean, it's kind of a Seth Godin term. Willing to give that feedback, willing to provide your time, willing to provide your expertise to help somebody else, and willing to do the emotional labor and really be honest with people in a kind and empathetic way. So those are the traits: driven and generous. As far as projects go, this is pretty wide open. There is a scenario, well, I'll get to that in a second. Your project can be any number of things. It needs to have a goal or intended outcome, and I am more than happy to help you craft that in the context that makes sense for Unreal. If you're looking at something and you're saying, I want to find clarity around my next career move, that may on the surface not seem like a good fit for this, but we can put a structure around that so that we project forward 12 weeks and we have an attainable outcome or a goal, and we can create steps to get there. And it can be pretty wide open. But like I said, you need to have an outcome in mind, a goal in mind, and you and I will work together to create a roadmap that puts structure around that outcome or goal. It could be any number of things, as I said. It could be a software startup. It could be a freelancer. People who are entrepreneurial or creative, yes, it seems to be a lot easier to put that structure and find that goal. But you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be full-time. You don't have to be a full-time freelancer. You don't have to be building a tech startup. It can be a lot of things. We've had people who wrote books, people who did podcasts on the side, people who are working on better habits, people who were starting shops on the side. You and I can work together if you have any question around whether what you're thinking about is a good fit for Unreal. I would love to talk to you about it. But it can be any of those things. So be open-minded, lean towards optimism, and say there's something that can make this fit. And if there's any question, again, reach out to me. You can find me. You can go to unrealcollective.com, enter in the chat or the contact. You can email me at j@unrealcollective.com. I'm very easy to get a hold of if you find me on any platform. So we'd love to talk to you about it. Would love to find a way to make that work because I want to be as inclusive as I can. I want to help as many people as I can. And diversity is something that I care very strongly about. Diversity in all forms of the word, in age, in project, in race, ethnicity, in backgrounds. I want to be as diverse as possible because that gives us all kinds of perspectives to incorporate and make good decisions and really help each other out. So we've got 2 more things to cover here. We have next steps, which I'm going to talk about immediately. And then we have the Q&A portion. Again, I received some questions in advance, so I'll cover those. if you have any questions, enter them into the Ask a Question or the chat, and I'll cover them as well. So I'm going to take a drink of water real quickly because I've been talking for about 35 minutes. Perfect. So next steps. Let's say you're interested, you want to learn more. Applications are open now. They opened last week. They are open until January 12th. I am accepting applications on a rolling basis. So if you apply now, you can be accepted now and you can be approved now. And there are two reasons why you should care about that. One, I'm offering a 10% discount to people who confirm in December. I'm doing that so I get a firm handle on things, so that we bring in the people who are most interested. Yeah, just wanted to offer that. So 10% off if you apply and are accepted in December. I'm on top of the applications. I'm making decisions quickly based upon how good of a fit you are. If there's any question from your application, if there's a fit or not, I generally reach out and I say, let's schedule a call and talk about it. So applications are open now, open until January 12th. And I only have 20 spots maximum is what I'm looking at. So we're about halfway full already, which is crazy because we opened a week ago, but there's still about 10 spots. So if you are interested, it's going to behoove you to move quickly so I can get your application, I can review your application, we can make sure we're on the same page, and we can move forward. The other reason that you may care to get in December is that for a lot of people, this is a business expense. Whether it's your personal business or whether you can qualify this for continuing education with your company, this can be considered a business expense. And so getting that into 2017 on your taxes when you may have some spend yet to cover, you can ask your company about that, could be a good idea for you. So that's why I bring that up. I would encourage you to apply sooner rather than later. Things can kind of get busy around the holidays, which are coming up very quickly. But before you realize it, it's going to be past Christmas, it's going to be near New Year's, and it's going to be a lot harder to get the application in under the December deadline. So would encourage you to do that this week if you're considering it. Again, if you want to chat one-on-one, send me an email to jay@unrealcollective.com. Would be more than happy to chat with you. So now I'm going to pull up questions that we have. Okay. Boom. So obvious question that I probably should have led with was, what is the cost of this? What is the investment? So, and that's important. I really do look at this as an investment and not a cost, because this is a community that you'll have access to for months, years, as long as you want to. Everybody that's gone through the program is still in Slack. They're active. They're talking right now. They're excited to meet the new folks joining. Those relationships will continue to exist. And for a lot of our creative service providers, it's already paid for itself, which is great for them. So I look at it as an investment. An investment in just the straight group calls is $6.99 for the 12 weeks. It breaks down to something like $48 a week. If you take 10% off of that, it's something like $6.30. And that's for the base level membership. The most common membership is the calls, the community, the resources, all of that, plus a bi-weekly check-in with me. I meet with you one-on-one over video chat. That time is totally your time. It works, it helps to prepare for that. I have some probing questions, but that's just used as an extra sort of level of me helping you get to the next step. We can talk about action items for the next week. We can talk about specific things you're getting locked up on that I can give you my perspective on. A lot of times in the calls, I try to hold back and let communication happen. I have a lot to contribute. So the one-on-one calls really help a lot of people. And I'm more than happy to spend some of my time doing that. It's actually more economical to join Unreal Collective and work with me on a bi-weekly or weekly basis one-on-one than it would be just to work with me one-on-one outside of Unreal Collective, which is something I get asked a lot. And I say you should really consider doing this because it's a better investment. So regular calls plus bi-weekly one-on-one with me is $9.99. Take 10% off of that, and it goes down to $8.99. And then there's a third level, which is weekly check-ins with me. I don't often recommend this unless you're really green and really starting out. I feel that we really cover a lot of ground on our bi-weekly. I help you get pretty far ahead so that you can run for 2 weeks before we need to check in personally again. But that is $12.99, and with the 10% off, it's $10, 29 or something close to that. Math is hard. So those are the 3 levels of investment. If you have any questions or concerns about that, reach out. I have done payment plans in the past. It's not the way I prefer to do it, but I really want to work with good people. I don't want to be cost prohibitive. So reach out. Let's talk about what makes sense. I've divided it into halves before. I think I've even done thirds once before. So let me know if that's something that would make it more practical and possible for you. I am very cognizant of cash flow myself. I understand constraints. So it's just a conversation that if you want to have it, I'm more than happy to have that. I got a question earlier, how are groups determined, which I feel like I covered quite a bit here. It's really, that's part of the secret sauce of this. And not to toot my own horn, but having worked with so many people over the years, I've gotten a pretty good sense for how people operate, what type of people they'll operate well around. I very quickly in our personal discussions understand where you are and where you're going. And so it's pretty easy for me to match up people based on that. Literally the last time I did this, I took everybody's name, I put them on a piece of paper, I laid it out on the table, and I just played around until I made the most sense in most optimal groups of 5. And I can tell you that 12 weeks afterwards, going through all 12 weeks of calls, I would do it the exact same as I did. There was nothing that I would have done differently or people that I would put in different groups. So I feel really good about the grouping process. But of course, if you are specifically looking for a type of person who you know will help you level up, I would love to hear that input, because on some level I do recruiting here. I go and find people who I think would be a really good fit and I make the pitch to them. So if you are looking specifically for someone who's really great at Rails development, I might go and do the extra work of finding someone who is good at Rails to bring them into the group on your behalf. And if they're already going to be in the group, that just helps me make that matching process better too. What is available outside of the calls? This is where Slack really plays in. Slack is available 24/7. What I've really loved to see is I get the weekly activity email from Slack to say, here's the type of messages, number of messages that were sent in the channel this week. And what's blown me away is that during the 12 weeks of calls, every week the activity went up, and the majority of activity, 2/3 to 75% of the activity was in direct messages. People were working with each other offline, one-on-one. A lot of it was in the private group channels, and some of it was in the public channels, obviously. So that's always there and available, but I'm constantly adding new resources and new opportunities to connect with each other outside of that. You know, I talked about the work sessions that we've done on historically Saturday mornings at the Idea Foundry here in Columbus, but also digitally. We have our showcase. We have, if there is a trend that I see of people who need sales advice, let's say, people who are selling a product and they really need someone with an outside perspective that's an expert in sales technically, I will do the work of going and finding that person, setting up a, you know, sort of optional event for that group of people and saying, hey, I'm bringing in a sales expert, come in and talk with him. So I'm always happy to do that scouting. If you have that idea and you bring that up, would love to help make that happen. And like I said, there are actually some resources as well that I've started to aggregate that I haven't broadcasted or advertised because it's not as fleshed out as I want. But for this next group, there's a book that everyone's going to get for free. There is a free hour consultation with my accountant, who's incredible and works with everybody that I refer him to. He's offering a free hour of tax consultation. There's one more thing on the table that I have to look at. But I'm constantly trying to grow the set of resources available to members so that, you know, this is very cost effective. And again, look at this as an investment because those resources are going to continue to grow. One question I get frequently is why video calls versus meeting up in person? And there are a few reasons. One, it makes it very time efficient. You can, like I said, you can drop in right at the beginning of the hour and right off the end of the hour, you can drop off. What some people don't realize a lot is when you have in-person meetings frequently, you're spending 30 to 60 minutes in the car going to and from. And then before you're in the car, you're thinking about the time you're going to be in the car and you're saying, well, I only have 15 minutes left to start to drive, so I don't have time to do anything. An hour-long meeting can very easily turn into 2 to 3 hours of commitment. And so this really cuts down on that. It allows you to feel very comfortable in your own home. You can do these calls from anywhere. If you're traveling 1 week, it allows you to still make this a priority because you can do it from anywhere. You can even do it from your phone. And I am interested in cross-pollinating the community with people all over the country. There's an individual who's going to be joining this next group who's in Alaska, and I think that's amazing. We've had people from California, Los Angeles specifically, Chicago, Cincinnati, Toledo, New Jersey, Denver in the past. So that's pretty incredible, and that's only possible because we're doing video calls. I'm going to interrupt my list here to get to Soji's question. Thank you, Soji, for this question. How much are members of Unreal Collective involved in health technology related ventures? Wondering if I'll have enough of a support system to join. So I can tell you in this last group, we had one individual who's building an EHR technology. We had another individual who's in creative services who works with healthcare organizations. And outside of people directly in healthcare, I'm trying to think if there's anybody else directly in the last couple of groups. I'm looking at my board of people involved this time around. Outside of people who are directly in healthcare, if there is something that you need to talk with people in healthcare, that's what myself or people in the group can help you connect to those people. You know, think of this as an extended network. You're tapping into the networks of the 5 people that are in your group, the 4 plus me, but also the extended network of the group. If you send out a Slack message and say, I need to talk to somebody who is within healthcare, I need to talk to someone who is a CFO at a healthcare system, whatever that is, we're going to be able to source that person. And we do that because we know it's a community, and we know that we're helping other people because they will help us. So I would absolutely not be concerned about not having enough of a support system there, because just me personally, I can tell you that I know plenty of those people from my time in CrossChecks, from my relationships at Cover My Meds, you name it. I'm happy to connect you to anyone in my network. Hopefully that answers your question, Soji, and if not, please follow up. What time zones are available is another question I get a lot. Theoretically, any time zone. Part of the application is asking what time of day will work for you. And I want you to be as open-minded with that as possible and as flexible as possible. And I'll send a doodle poll to you once you commit your spot as well to get the hours of the day that you feel comfortable making a priority. What I would not like is to make group decisions solely based off of time zones. So the more flexible you can be so that the groups are decided based upon optimal people to connect, the better. But recognizing that our new member who's in Alaska is going to have a different schedule than someone in Columbus. And so he being in Alaska, it may be a very different time of day for him that he has to meet with people in Columbus, and that's okay. The first group we did, we had a member in Los Angeles, we had a member in the Central Time Zone, and we had 3 members on the East Coast. We found a time to make it work. So theoretically, all time zones are in play as long as we can coordinate what's available on your schedule with 4 other individuals in the group. And if there's a situation where we absolutely cannot do that, we will say very, very sorry and refund your money immediately, because we want to make it work. We'll be as flexible as possible. But if it's not possible, then it's not possible. I can tell you in the last round of applications, we had 15 people confirmed, and there were 7 applications that I turned away. And it was not because anything to do with the validity or opportunity of their idea. It was I didn't see where I was setting them up for success based upon what their idea was and who else was in the applicant pool. They didn't have a clear vision for their outcome or goal, or their schedule just didn't work with everyone else in the group. So we will make accommodations as best we can. But if it's not possible, it's not possible. Don't disqualify yourself for that. I will do the work of ensuring that it's possible. And if it's not, then I will let you know. 2 more questions that I have in front of me. So if you guys have more questions, please share them. Can my company pay for this is a question I get. And my answer is yes. You and your company's answer is going to have to be determined by you and your company. You can file this under continuing education. You can put this as a business expense for professional services. Just let me know what you need from me to help make that process seamless. I'm happy to provide an invoice. I'm happy to provide a description of the program and the intended benefit. Whatever I can do to fit within your system, let me know. But more than happy to make whatever accommodation for that you need me to. And again, if that is best served for 2017 spend and budgeting, you're going to want to apply this week, early next week, to make that possible, and you can turn that around and make that case. Great. Last question, where can I learn more? This is probably obvious. I think actually I put this question in just to put a nice bookmark at the end of this. But go to unrealcollective.com. Hopefully all this information is there and clear. There's an FAQ section now. There's also some testimonials from members who are currently in the community. There is a listing of every member who has gone through the community and a link to their work. So you can get a feel for who's already here and what they've worked on. Would love for you to check that out. I'd love to hear your feedback on the website, anything that's not clear, but all the information should be there. And again, please, I'll enter this into the chat. If you have any questions, email me, jay@unrealcollective.com. More than happy to set up a time to talk with you directly to see, whatever's on your mind, talk you onto or off the ledge, joining off the fence, I should say. But I would consider this a real opportunity for you and your business. I've seen this be a game changer for so many individuals. I know it can work for you. It will be work. It will be commitment. But that's what you're kind of putting your flag up to say. You're saying, I am committing to 12 weeks of focus. And you're saying this program will help me maintain that. And it will also be sort of rocket fuel to help me take advantage of this opportunity based on the other people in the group. So would love for you to really consider this. Reach out if you have any questions. I would love to work with you. And I think you would be very, very happy and grateful for the opportunity to join the individuals who are coming into Unreal and be a part of it. So thanks for your time. Reach out if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll be talking to you soon.